a pull from the health section of this particular magazine. They talk about maternal deaths, because hundreds of mothers do die during childbirth, leaving their kids back with their partners to try and cater for them and raise them through the entire infant stage, which sometimes is a very difficult task. And it's up to the government and the Ministry of Health to ensure that the issue of maternal deaths can be tackled, or at least the number to be reduced. That particular story is on the Daily Nation. Here, starting on, it's a pull-out here on the Daily Nation, the Health Nation they call it, and you can go through that particular pull-out to just understand what is happening. And they say almost 60% of all, no, that is about the environment, but more so they talk about maternal deaths, and they say failed by the system, mothers we lost inside maternity wards, which is something that leaves a lot of families in distressing conditions, like they say, and again raises concerns and questions regarding to the safety and the standards of hospitals across the country in various counties. Remember, health as well is one of the devolved functions which is being overseen by county governments, and of course still under the watch of the national government. Now, before we wrap up the newspaper review and look at a couple of stories making headlines this particular morning, Gatundu MP Gabriel Kangombe was denied bond yesterday in a murder case. Remember, Kangombe was accused of fatally shooting a citizen in Kiambu constituency a couple of weeks ago during a confrontation which saw the supporters of Kangombe, Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, Alice Ng'ang'a, the MP for Thika, and the supporters of an MCA in the region, that is Kiambu County MCA Peter Mburu Mungai, as well as the supporters of the governor, Kimani Wamatangi, exchanged blows, and Kangombe allegedly shot someone dead. And he was arrested, and they say Getting to South MP Gabriel Kangombe was arrested over the death of a border rider David Nduati Wataha, will remain in police custody until Friday, after the High Court in Machakos declined to free him on bond. It is now more than clear that Gabriel Kangombe is facing murder charges, and people are talking about how that case had been forgotten, but it's really good to see that the judicial system the wheels are moving, and Kangombe is now under custody. It was ordered that he should undergo his mental state. They should check on his mental state before the case continues. And he's not just being charged for anything. He's being charged with murder. Now, finally, there's a Kenyan woman who becomes the first black mayor in Northern Ireland City. And Lillian Sino Ibra, a Kenyan woman who made history after being elected Councillor of the Northern Ireland in United Kingdom, was yesterday inaugurated as the first black mayor of Derry and Strabane district councils. That is a story on page 2. That is a Kenyan woman who comes from Narok County. On that note, I just wrap the newspaper review. Let's now take a short breath, and then we'll be back with at least a couple of stories making headlines on or in the news this particular morning. Well, thank you very much for staying with us. President William RUTO, among other dignitaries, have arrived in Seoul, South Korea, for the Korea Africa Summit 2024. The summit seeks to establish robust ties between South Korea and Africa, capitalizing on their respective strengths to promote mutual development, address global issues, and strengthen the unity for peace and security. President Ruto will engage in one-on-one discussions with President Yoon Suk-yeol, focusing on enhancing areas of collaboration.
Almost immediately.
Thank you. Hello, how are you? How's your body? Korea? Habari yako? Salama? Hello, how are you? Very good. Habari? How are you? Very good. Habari yako? Hello, how are you? Habari? Habari? Hello, how are you? Habari yako? Hello, how are you? Very good. Hello, how are you guys? Very good. Habari? Hello, how are you?
Now, the Kenya Human Rights Commission has raised concerns about the government's proposed relocation of families impacted by the tragedy in Mai Mahiu, Naivasha County. In a statement advocating for transparency, the Commission has criticized the government for purportedly compelling families to vacate 2 camps and move into rented accommodations without providing a sustainable and long-lasting solution. Martin Masharia tells us more.
Following the aftermath of the devastating floods that left families in Mai Mahiu homeless, the Kenya Human Rights Commission has raised the red flag over the planned resettlement of families affected by the tragedy. While calling for transparency, the Commission has accused the government of forcing out the families from 2 camps into rented houses without offering a long-lasting solution.
Quite a number of them have been told to leave the camps to go and rent facilities for a period of 3 months, with the hope that ultimately they will be resettled. But as you could get from most of the victims, is that there's a lot of uncertainty and lack of clarity, because once they have been they have left the camp, there's no clear information framework on what actually is happening, and now they feel that they have been left with their elements, not knowing what to do.
The government recently closed the last 2 camps that had been providing temporary shelter to the affected families, offering them a 3-month rent for alternative accommodation. However, some victims have reportedly rejected this move, raising concerns over the lack of a sustainable solution.
Kutoka siku hiyo hakuna kitu tumepata. Ng'ombe zilienda, mbuzi, kuku, mpaka nyumba moja imeenda, nyingine moja yenye imebaki iko na crack, na kutoka siku hiyo hakuna kitu chenye tumepata kwa serikali. Sasa ile sisi tuliambiwa sisi hatukuguzwa sana.
Hatujui mwelekeo kwa sababu president alikuja na akasema atatoa 300 million. Sasa hiyo 300 million watu tulikuwa tunangoja kwamba tukitoka pale mtu atakuwa amepelekwa kwake. Sasa our concern is baada hiyo muda imekodeshwa, mtu amekodelewa miezi 3, ikiisha tutafanya nini? Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali, kwa maana hii mtangazo wa serikali kuu, waone vile wanaweza kufanya nini kutusaidia ama kusaidia watu.
HRC's Deputy Executive Director Cornelius Oduor expressed uncertainty surrounding the resettlement exercise, with fears that the government may not fulfill its obligations to the displaced families. The Commission is, however, urging authorities to prioritize well-being of the affected families and ensure that their rights are protected throughout the resettlement process.
So what we are calling for government to do is to have a clear resettlement plan and give proper information that can give these victims some level of certainty as to when and how they will be compensated.
Martin Masharia, Lookuptv.
Well, the KANU party has expressed dissatisfaction with the High Court's decision regarding the land where the Kenyatta International Convention Center stands, purportedly owned by the government. As Stephanie Egegu now files on the corridors of justice, the party has decided that it will appeal that particular ruling.
In a statement to Newsroom, KANU has expressed its dissatisfaction with the ruling of the court regarding the piece of land that hosts the Kenya International Convention Center, noting that the ruling was not fair. On Monday, the High Court ruled that the KICC land belongs to the government. Justice Jacqueline Mogeni said KANU illegally and unlawfully acquired the land. However, in a statement, KANU said they were disappointed by the judgment delivered. KANU said that its legal team has been instructed to file a notice of appeal with immediate effect. The statement read in part, and I quote, "While we respect and appreciate the independence of the judiciary as an arbiter in this matter, we wish to clearly state that we are in total disagreement with the judgment granting the ownership of the land to the Ministry of Tourism." The party, through the statement signed by its Director of Communication Manasseh Nyainda, said it has instructed its lawyers to appeal the ruling made today. Justice Jacqueline Mugeni revoked the title issued in the name of KANU and issued a declaration that the Ministry of Tourism is the lawful owner of the land. The judge questioned how the late President Daniel Arap Moi was allocated the land not surveyed and allotted for public use. He observed that KANU did not, in evidence, present the procedure of how public land was alienated and not allocated to the chairman of a political party. Elsewhere, National Industrial Training Authority Director General Stephen Ogenga was on Monday arraigned before Milimani Law Court and charged with improperly awarding a 4.8 million tender for the supply and repair of training machines. Ogenga pleaded not guilty and was granted a cash bail of 1 million shillings. Ogenga was charged alongside former NITA boss Paul Kipsang, who did not plead to the charges as he was not present in court. Kipsang, through his lawyers, applied to defer his plea, saying he was sick at home. He requested to appear in court on Wednesday, May 5th, 2024. Two other suspects and a company were separately charged with 2 counts related to the alleged offense. This case will be mentioned on June 19th. Stephanie Gugu, Lookuptv.
Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has urged Kenyans to have confidence in President William Ruto's administration in improving the economy. Speaking at his official residence in Karen, Nairobi, Gachagua said they are recognizing the government's efforts and dedications to foster stronger collaborations with other development partners. Now, the Betting Control and Licensing Board, in collaboration with county governments, has provided food aid and water tanks to flood victims in the areas of Mavoko in Athi River, Machakos County. Speaking at the launch event of the tanks, the partners have called upon other non-governmental organizations to support the project, as Sonia Njiru now files.
According to Simon Mwangi, marketing manager of the betting company Bet Power, this step is aimed at giving back to the community as well as bringing relief to flood victims.
We are here today at Mavoko location, where we are initiating one of our CSR campaigns, where we give back to the community by giving food aid to the people of Mavoko and also at the river. This will target the people who have been affected, the victims of floods, and in partnership with the gaming board BCLB, with the chair lady Jane Macau, we were able to target these families and households.
Chairperson of the Gambling Control and Licensing Board, Jane Macau, stated that through the collaboration, 60 tanks have been launched intended for distribution in 14 counties affected by floods, urging other non-governmental organizations to support the project to aid flood victims.
We are partnering together with the county governments. We, as you saw in the morning today, we released, I flagged off 60 water tanks for harvesting, that which goes to 14 counties in Kenya. Our government is doing a very good job, but also the private sector needs to support our stakeholders. And for this, I really appreciate the betting companies for coming to the aid of our fellow Kenyans.
According to Frederick Kimani, Assistant Chief of the Mavoko area, a total of 500 people have been selected to receive aid, targeting the elderly, most affected families, and people with disabilities.
Each village we have picked 100, and among the 100 that we have picked, we have selected the elderly. We have also selected the underprivileged, the families that really don't have anything. And of course, we also considered the PWT. Those are the numbers that they are making 500 in total.
Sonia Njiru, Lookuptv.
Now, if the Parliament accepts a proposal from all 47 women representatives for tax exemption of sanitary towels, millions of underprivileged schoolgirls nationwide will receive them for free, courtesy of the government. Now, this and more stories in our news wrap.
Wanafunzi wasichana ambao wamebalege, ambao wamefika hicho kiwango, na wakati mwingine wakati hatuna vifaa hivi shuleni, mtoto anaweza kukaa nyumbani, pengine mzazi hana pesa, kwa hivyo anaona aache kuja shule, kwa sababu sisi huwa tunawapatia, tukiletewa na wizara hii huwa tunawapatia, lakini kunakaa muda kabla tupate. Kwa hivyo ndio maana tumefurahi kama Honorable wa Muratha, kwa sababu ni wa kike kama sisi, atashughulika kila mwezi kuhakikisha kuwa wasichana wetu hawana tatizo hili tena. Wavulana wasilalamike kwa sababu wameachwa, na nafasi hii tuseme ni ya wasichana, na watasaidika na pesa hizi kwa sababu ni vile sisi tumeubwa.
Tumeungana hapa na County Commissioner wa Kiambu County na viongozi wengine wa serikali ili kuja kulaunch officially mpango ambao ni wa serikali, ambao umekuwa katika Ministry ya Education, na kwa wakati huu mpango huo umetolewa kwa Ministry ya Education na umeletwa kwa National Government Affirmative Action Fund, ambayo ndio kiti ambayo ina support ofisi ya Woman Rep. Na kwa hivyo siku hii ya leo sanitary zote za county ya Kiambu zimeshafika katika sub county zote, na kwa hivyo hapa katika Kiambu constituency Ndumberi Stadium tumekuja ili tuweze kulaunch officially hizi sanitary towels za Kiambu County ambazo naeleza kwa sasa zimefika katika sub county zote. Agano ambalo tulilo nalo na ofisi ya president, ama tulipoongea na president tukiwa viongozi wote 47 wa wamama, tulikubaliana na rais ya kwamba mpango huu wa sanitary utatolewa katika Ministry ya Education, uletwe kwa ofisi ya Gender ambayo ndio imesimamia ofisi ya Woman Rep.
Well, those were the news making headlines this particular morning here on the Morning Drift. We'll take a brief breather and then we'll be back with a big conversation this particular morning surrounding the happenings around Mt.Kenya. Which way and what next for the Mt.Kenya region in the wake of this spat between the president and his deputy, and the president, of course, contradicting his deputy on various issues, top among them including the call for MPs to stay in their constituencies rather. That after there's a short break. Don't go away.
Once again, tuko hapa Angel Center for Abandoned Kids, all because of you.
My name is Catherine Wanjiru Njero. I am the admin, Angel Center for Abandoned Children. Our founder is Wamaitha Mwangi. We currently have 64 children, 32 going to school, and among those 32, 2 are special children, and we are left at the home with 32. Now the toddlers and the infants. To the RUTO Foundation, thank you so much for remembering us. Guys, we lack words. We lack words. We don't know what to say. Thank you for remembering us. You made a promise and you have delivered. And may God bless you. To my fellow Kenyans, as usual, cheza loto, sio ndoto. Angel Center tumeshinda loto.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the RUTO Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Save Our Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
Are you a junior secondary school, a college, a TVET institution, or a university, and you want to advertise your intake? Book now and advertise with us today on both Lookuptv and all our digital platforms. Call us today or email us on sales@lookuptv.co.ke.
If you want to have a proper outlook of the economy, then you have to speak to the wheels and gears of the integral businesses in the country.
And I want to be able to make the youths and everybody coming up in Kenya know that this is here locally.
Men and women in the thick of the bust of markets rising and falling, fighting to make their business decisions stick.
I've always lived in my career that I can never be late.
You need to train by yourself. You need to practice by yourself. Then from there you can compose yourself and give kind of services like this.
On season 2 of the Captain's Arena, we seek the inside of the minds, predict the shift in the markets, get inspiration to start and make sense of it all.
Just watch what everybody else is doing and just make sure you're giving back to the society.
Oof. This is the Captain's Arena.
To you yet again. In case you're joining us, you're just in time for the big conversation here on the morning drift. Now, as of now, we all know that the president and his deputy have been having a sort of, you don't want to call it a war of words, because the president has been contradicting his deputy on certain issues here and there, and the deputy himself has been has sort of defied a directive by the president to shun what is termed as regional balkanization. Now, from the deputy president talking about MPs staying in their constituencies to the president saying no, in as much as you're supposed to work for your constituents, you can as well traverse the country, in what he terms as oversight, in his own words, speaking in Bungoma County on Sunday. Now, the DP on his part has said he will continue to champion for the interests of Mt.Kenya region. as he is not only the president's principal assistant, but the chief ambassador for Mount Kenya region. And he will continue to champion for whatever interests that will ensure that the people of Mount Kenya benefit from this particular administration. One thing in particular is the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote mantra, which he says he will push as the region will benefit fully. Now, this particular morning, joining me to dissect that is Mr. Isaac Ebuge. Very good morning to you, sir.
Hi, good morning.
You're doing great?
Doing great. It's a lovely day.
A pleasure to have you around.
Thank you.
Of course, Wakili Peter Wasaga will be joining us in a moment. But just to kickstart this conversation, from where you sit as a leadership and governance expert, to start with, what do you make of this sort of spark between the president and his deputy?
Yeah, I think it's quite an unfortunate position, and the position of the deputy president that was initially vice president again is proving to be a poisoned chalice once again, and such fights rearing its head in the Kenya Kwanza administration is quite unfortunate. But when you look at the points of contestation, it leaves a lot to be desired. These two gentlemen are just 2 years into their presidency, and we are seeing a government that is at free fall from the president and the deputy president, bashing each other, from members of the coalition. We are having the stories of an elevated MCA on this side. We are having story of a tout to the other side. We are having, stories of shareholding in government. It just points to one thing, that Kenya is in a crisis. That the leadership in this country is at a crisis. And it takes us back to what Chinua Achebe says, that everything rises and falls on leadership. And that is what we are seeing right now, that the deputy president, who is a presidency, and presidency is, an aspect of, in the constitution, is regarded as an aspect of national unity. It speaks into, the leadership of the country. So it is unfortunate when we find that the president is accusing people in his government of propagating tribalism. Is it that he's not in charge, or what is the big question? And on the other side, a besieged deputy president who is now championing the interests of a region and a community. We all know that a few months into government, he was across the media and everywhere saying that this is a shareholding government. So is Rigathi Gachagua trying to tell us that he is a representative of the mountain and not a deputy president who needs to serve the interests of the entire nation? Because even when you look what he's doing is that he has gone back to his backyard. That is where all these utterances are coming from the Mt.Kenya backyard. And so that is where we are, and we are saying that the country is in a crisis. That the president and the deputy president need to come on a round table, have a sober discussion of how they are going to move this country forward, so that we avoid these sideshows that are distracting Kenyans. But again, as we look at this disagreement, another big question is this disagreement a total facade to divert our attention from the key national issue that everybody is talking about, that is the Finance Bill 2024? I beg to submit that this is a distraction that they are playing us.
Before you talk about distraction and all that, you've talked about Rigathi Gachagua going back to his home turf. Is it a case of a wounded lion going back to you want to say where his fellow pride of lions are, just to console himself? Because it was a bit shocking to see that even after the Madaraka celebrations, we're used to the president and the deputy hosting leaders and all those people, dignitaries who attend national celebrations for a luncheon at probably the State Lodge or State House if it's here in Nairobi. But that was not the case. The DP made a brief appearance and then immediately he flew all the way from Bungoma to Laikipia County. And in that particular event in Laikipia County, he said in his local dialect that when you see I'm quiet, know that things are not okay. But I'll not keep quiet entirely. If things don't change, I will speak. And in fact, he told the people of Mount Kenya, I'm not the only person who's supposed to push our interests. Ask your MPs, what are they doing? So is it a case of someone who's sort of wounded and is trying to now go back to his people to try and re-energize himself?
Now, Kenya, as our politics and the way politicians have guided us is that we are tribal setting, and tribal balkanization has been, the best strategy of positioning yourself as a regional leader. You've heard these quite huge stories across media of this word called a kingpin. We are yet to define what kingpinship is all about in Kenyan politics. But as you realize that then it is good, and we need to acknowledge and say that tribal politics is our portion, and we need to accept it. When you look at the body language of the president and the deputy president during the Madaraka Day celebration, it was wanting, it was pointing to a divided house.
Okay.
And the fact that on such a critical national holiday that the deputy president will not sit among guests at a state lodge in Bungoma and chose to go back to his backyard. Mount Kenya has been restless since the government came in place. We all know that what entails Mount Kenya, or what makes Mount Kenya alive, the pulse of Mount Kenya, is business, is commerce. These are people who are across this country because of the entrepreneurial spirits, and we need to appreciate them for that. So the mountain has been restless since Kenya Kwanza took over. Why? Because of the economic policies that are being propagated by this government, that Mount Kenya felt that these policies are targeting us because we are the people in business.
Okay.
And Mount Kenya, despite of all that, is also suffering from power constipation. They have been at the center of power for the last 20 years. So right now, feeling power from a distance, from the second in command, they are yet to align, to recover that, one of our own is not at the top. And when you listen to the former president's speeches during run-up to the last election, he kept telling them, you see, that I've been on top there. I know how the government is run. And you have enjoyed a lot of policies that have supported you because I am there. So now, when one of them is not at the top, and they are feeling that the government policies are against them, Rigathi Gachagua has felt lonely at the top. He has been losing the base of the people that are business. That's why you see the current issue of recovering riparian land in Gikomba. Whom is it affecting? Majority, or we can say 80%, are the Kikuyu. When you look at the unfavorable taxes that are coming in, whom are they affecting majorly? Those targeting the business community is the Mount Kenya region. So the strategy that Rigathi has taken is that he's just seeing that this government is not serving the interests of his people. So the right thing is for him to change tune and therefore say, I'm in this government, but I'm being sidelined. Why am I being sidelined? Because I'm speaking for the sake of my people. I'm speaking for the business community.
Okay, fair enough. Wakili, Peter Osaga, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Ken.
I'm doing okay.
Pleasure.
A pleasure having you around. Now, thank you very much for coming. I've been speaking with Mr. Isaac, and we're really talking about the situation that we have between the president and his deputy, because clearly there is something in between. There's a missing piece. They're reading from different scripts. And I don't know from where you sit, what do you make of that particular situation? Because there are two things here, and Mr. Obuge has talked about it. It could be, yes, there's really an issue here, or as well there's a question of, is it diversionary tactic? They're trying to distract Kenyans from other things. For example, he's talked about the finance bill.
Thank you so much for having me here, Ian. One thing that I love about Kenya is that the end of one process begins the beginning of the other. we are campaigning as though the elections will be tomorrow. And if you ask me whether this is a diversionary tactic by the Kenya Kwanza government, I will tell you a big no. Politics, the way it is designed, it's basically, there are only two constants in politics. The first constant is interests, and the second constant is betrayal. There are no permanent friends in politics, and there are no permanent enemies in politics. And the moment we have that understanding, then we will be able now to appreciate that everyone is looking for their own selfish political interest and to get a negotiating currency. And you see, that's why when Rigathi Gachagua, early in 2023, when he said that they are joined with the president at the hips, that they can not even be separated, I saw that was just a lie. Because one, Rigathi Gachagua set so many traps for Raila, but he failed to set traps for his fellows from the mountain. And everyone has got political ambitions. And with these political ambitions, the president is taking advantage of these. And when he takes the advantage of this, the mountain feels as though their son is sidelined, but no, they are warring factions within Mt.Kenya, and that is what the deputy president is actually fighting. He feels like the president is not really giving him a lot of attention as he was given in the beginning. He feels like there is Ndindi Nyoro, who is becoming a darling of these young leaders from the Rift Valley. You see, Ndindi Nyoro is all over in the Rift Valley. The other time I saw him in AIC, Jamboni, giving millions of money, and he walks around. And that is what he went to Rift Valley to actually echo, to actually condemn, because he feels that his position is threatened. The other thing is that there was also that infight between now who is to become the kingpin of the mountain. There is that wing that is pulled by Ndindi Nyoro. There is that is pulled by Rigathi Gachagua. There is that which is pulled by Kirinyaga Governor Waiguru. And Waiguru was motivated by the president's speech during, I think it was a women conference, where the president actually alluded that going forward, we will try as much as we can to have a woman running mate. So if I run as a president, I'll get a woman running mate. And if a governor would run, there will be a female running mate. If it's a female governor, then a male running mate. So this, you see, everything in politics, nothing is said from nowhere. Everything is well designed to meet a certain political objective.
Okay.
I think just to come in, I like what Wakili has put, but my mind again is that Wakili and his people in the legal profession, they were over-optimistic about the Kenyan people when they were drafting the constitution. That we feel that this constitution was too advanced for where Kenya is. That as much as the drafters of it saw a growing Kenya, a maturing nation, but I think the political shenanigans has held us back from maturing. That's why when the drafters of the constitution felt that there will be a unity of purpose in government when a president has the deputy on the same ticket. You see, and then therefore in this one, in the Kenyan setting, with the tribal balkanization that comes with the positioning when it comes to every election period, you realize that the deputy president does not come on the ticket as a principal assistant to the president, but as somebody bringing a particular region on the table. And therefore he wants to come on this table and say, this is what I brought. Hence, as you engage me as your deputy, you need to consider what I've also delivered for you. And you see the same script that we are now seeing in the Kenya Kwanza government is just that it is a case of Gachagua having perfected the art and have been learned from William Ruto quite early enough. It's just that unfortunate that William Ruto played his card in the second term. But here is Gachagua who is ready to play his card in the first term by now starting to defy his principle. But now when you look at the positioning of the deputy president. And a big question comes up. If this fallout is true, will the center hold? The answer is yes, it will still hold. Why? Because we came to realize that Uhuru ruled this country without a deputy president for 5 years. This is a case whereby Gachagua is fighting for his life politically.
Now, he's fighting for his life. We're only 19 months into their first term. Saying he's fighting for his life is quite something. And by the way, why is it that the DPM, and you questioned this, you said this earlier on, as the deputy president, he not only is not a representative of the Mt.Kenya region, is the deputy president of the entire country. You'll not see the president come out and say, I'm fighting for the interest of Rift Valley, and this is what my people want. But the deputy president, you don't think maybe he'd have used the top leadership in the National Assembly, in whatever aspect, because the Mt.Kenya region has key leaders. In the National Assembly, they have Kimani Ichung'wah, the majority leader. They have the chairperson of the Finance Committee, Molo MP Kimani Ichung'wah. They have the chairperson of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, that is Ndindi Nyoro. Ideally, you'd maybe think you would have used those three leaders to try and propagate the interest of Mount Kenya. But again, for the DP, he sees Ndindi Nyoro as a competitor.
Yes, there is the question of Ndindi Nyoro and the generational angle that the Kenyan politics is taking, which is reverberating across the country. From the mountain, we are seeing the emergence of Ndindi Nyoro. From the ODM side and Nyanza region, we are seeing the positioning of Babu Owino. In Mulembeland, we are seeing the Tawe movement gaining currency. So there is this talk of generational leadership that is a good conversation, because every country, where I come from, we say that when you have a herd of bulls without a young bull in it, then you are headed to destruction. So yes, the emergence of these young leaders is a welcome kind of political gesture. But the fact is that where the issue is Gachagua positioned himself as a regional kingpin after dropping the Bible, after placing down the Bible like this, after such a stirring speech at Kasarani after being sworn in. Immediately Gachagua's Bible went down. He positioned himself as a regional kingpin. But the fact is, even as the president is talking about tribalism, he has no moral authority, because the fact remains that we have two tribes in this Kenya, in the country, who are taking almost every position in the country. The other tribal engagements, if we have to talk of the national cake, actually those are children of a lesser God, because in every appointment coming in, we are only seeing one drop of another ethnic setting, but the rest, we know where they are going. So it is quite unfortunate. Had this thing been real, by now, the Commission of National Cohesion will have called regarding Gachagua. Immediately he talks of the shareholding. Martha Karua's sentiments a few months back, just trying to propagate the interests of the community, was she not called by the National Cohesion to explain herself? Why has the deputy president not been called? When Mount Kenya gang up and start talking of this one man, one shilling, one vote kind of conversation, where does it leave the other the other tribal settings? So what we are saying is this. My submission is this: regarding Gachagua, lost the ground, he lost the sky. He should have fallen where his pieces will be gathered. He's going to remain very irrelevant, because there is an emergency of other leaders in Mount Kenya. And even as they are trying to propagate Ndindi Nyoro, the fact that Uhuru Kenyatta, who was their kingpin by that time, although the president of Kenya at that particular time, who had their interests at heart, but they were not able to hear where their son was directing them and left them go, Mount Kenya is going to go through the crisis of the Mulembe nation that has been unable to unite 30 years since Wamalo Kijana passed on.
Now, interesting. Wakili, I want to pose this question to you, because if it is true, or indeed true, that whatever Obuga is talking about, that Gachagua might end up being irrelevant and is feeling like is now being left out, Is that the reason as to why we've seen him in the recent weeks talking about how he is remorseful for the attacks on former President Uhuru Kenyatta, how he's ready to work with President, the former president in ensuring that the interest of Mount Kenya is, addressed. Now, the issue of the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote, that was a mantra that was being championed by former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And the DP now, Rigathi Gachagua, opposed that particular narrative then, but is now propagating and championing for that particular mantra, the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. Now, is it an issue of trying to really champion for the interest of Mount Kenya, or is he also trying to endear himself and ensure that he can be able to get or gather I don't call it.
Let me tell you something, Ian. I started by saying that politics is about interests. And when you have already served your interest, you look for advanced interests. One thing that is very clear about Kenyan politics is that it's not based on ideologies. It's based on conveniences. And our political parties are ethnicized. So that if you get the endorsement and backing of your community, then you have the audacity or you have the voice or the courage to negotiate. How did RUTO ascend to where he is? It's because he became the kingpin. He ensured that all dissenting voices were dealt with, and he became the sole kingpin of the Kalenjin nation or the Rift Valley. Raila Odinga, as much as there are politicians who are coming up, Raila has positioned himself as the kingpin for a very long time. And that gives him that latitude. Look at Kalonzo Musyoka. The same is with him. He has the political support from his Kamba backyard. Now, Uhuru Kenyatta was the kingpin from the mountain. And Uhuru Kenyatta, you see how humiliated he was at the end of his second tenure. So, Rigathi Gachagua has already mastered that in order to get a seat at the table, you have to have some backing. And what is the backing? It's not about financial. Finance is part of it, but the major part of it is the backing of your people.
Does he have the backing?
So that's what I'm coming to. He is headed to the right direction, though he goes against the tenets of the constitution of presidency being a symbol of national unity. And the fact that he's a deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. But he's not a fool. He knows very well that there were promises that were made to his people. And these promises have not been fulfilled.
It's only 19 months.
He knows that there are very punitive measures that have been placed by the Kenya Kwanza government, including the tax measures, including the people are suffering, the demolitions. And clearly, the mountain have shifted. Actually, they have left Kenya Kwanza. And what is Rigathi Gachagua doing? He's looking for relevance. He's looking for relevance so that when that time comes, he's able to...
Let me get this right.
Yes.
Are you saying the people of the mountain have shifted from the Kenya Kwanza administration because of the punitive taxes and the demolitions?
Not necessarily about that. You see, one thing that could be, that is what they project, and that is what their leaders want them to hear. Because you see, in your quest to unite your people, the unity, it's not yet to ethnically balkanize your people, let me say that. You have to whip them emotionally. And one of the emotive topics they have introduced and they are using very successfully is that this Kenya Kwanza regime, especially the wing from the deputy from the president, are introducing punitive taxes. It is only the Mount Kenyans who are being subjected to the tax tribunal. They have demolitions. And you see, this thing is resonating with these people. The high cost of living, the taxes, it's interfering with the businesses. And let us just look at it wholesomely. This looked vis-a-vis the bottom-up economy that was introduced by the president. You saw how it resonated. I knew clearly that these were ambitious slogans which would not see the light of the day, but it resonated with the electorates and they bought it. So electorates can easily be de-whipped. So already Rigathi Gachagua has noted, or he has seen that there is some loophole and he wants to get through this hole. One, that's why he's trying very much to reach Uhuru Kenyatta is trying very much to now bring the 1 man, 1 shilling vote, because already he knows that the mountains already they are crying. There's a lot of hue and cry in the mountain. So he will succeed. Why? Because he has decided to play with the emotions of the people. For Ndindi Nyoro, Ndindi Nyoro, Waiguru, Ishungwa, and these the rest, the MP, how do you call him? Okay, the CS, Moses Kuria. They are going to remain irrelevant because there is a narrative that DP Gachagua invented. That as much as we were looking for bottom-up last time, right now we are looking for bottom-up unity. And what is this unity for? To protect our people. It's not to protect their people. No. It's just to mobilize them to bargain.
Now, I want us to listen to what the DP had to say on Sunday in regards to matters unity and what his plans are for the Mount Kenya region before we continue with this conversation.
Yesterday, somebody argued that for call of unity of our region, we can be isolated. Why would anybody isolate us of being united? Why? How can unity be a bad thing? Is unity a bad thing? Unity is a good thing. I don't think anybody can say that because we are united, we should be isolated. I think that is very retrogressive talk. Unity is good for this country. And this country is made up of regions. Regions are made up of counties. And therefore we'll cultivate for unity bottom up. I wanted to explain what is our call for unity. It's unity to ensure there is speedy development. It's unity of purpose to join other regions to be part of the greater Kenya. It is also unity to enhance our relevance in the national political discourse. Because when we are united, we are able to successfully bargain for our share of the national cake, as it should be. Mimi nimekuwa nikiongea mambo ya amani, sio katika mlima Kenya peke yake, lakini katika Kenya kwa jumla. And the truth of the matter, we must agree, Kenya is made up of regions. And regions are made up of counties. For a region to be peaceful, for a region to be united, the counties must be united.
Well, Mr. Obuge, you've heard the Deputy President talking about, unity for a country to be united, counties must be united, and all that. Now, Wakili has talked about how the DP has now sort of whipped emotions, and he has the support of the Mount Kenya region. But again, you didn't really want to, underestimate the power of, those key leaders from the region, because in as much as he also talked about something that might not have gone well with the DP in terms of when the president talked about during the G7 launch, the women governors, whatever, and he's talked about at some point in time there should be a rule that if the presidential candidate is a man, the deputy must be a woman, and for the governors and all that. Now, Anne Mumbi Waiguru, our tenure lapses in 2027. She's definitely looking at, can the president pick me to be, his running mate? Ndindi Nyoro, on the other hand, like Wakili said, is traversing across the country. He was in Samburu over the weekend. He's always all over the places. He's in Northeastern, Rift Valley, Central. But the DP himself, if you look clearly in the past couple of weeks or so, his energy has been in the Mount Kenya region. It's only once that he went to the Rift Valley and, he sort of had an altercation in terms of, a war of words with Oscar Sudi. So should he really just focus on the Mount Kenya region? Because at the end of the day, he might have the support of the Mount Kenya region. His people might gather around, because as it stands at the moment, if you listen to what, even analysts from Mount Kenya region do say, they're ready to forgive Gachagua. So long as he gets, he gathers his, efforts together, team up with the likes of Uhuru Kenyatta, the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka, and former what they call is the real gamer, they can support him so long as he does not take them back to William Ruto, because like Wakili says, they also say the Mount Kenya region has shifted from the Kenya Kwanza government.
Yes, I think I alluded to it when I started on my submission by saying Mount Kenya is totally exposed. and the mountain is suffering because these are the, apart from the Asian community, you realize that the native Kenyans, these are the main, people that play a critical cog in the economy of this country. So with the policies that have been coming from the government, looking at the issue, just the most recent issue of, we didn't know the avocado tax was in the finance bill. And the MP, leading people in chasing away the KRA officials. That was a clear picture that, there's something going on in the mountain. That the mountain is restless in Kenya Kwanza government. Now, where the Deputy President Erad was going into the Kenya Kwanza coalition, or rather into UDA, as a member of UDA. When we go back, when coalition started in Kenya in 2002, Mwai Kibaki was a presidential candidate, but he has his vehicle called the Democratic Party. His vice president, Michael Wamalwa Kijana, has his own party called what? Ford Kenya, where you run to when the house becomes hot. You have your own house. When we came to the time of Kalonzo Musyoka has had his party, the Orange Democratic Movement Kenya, ODM-K, before it metamorphosed into Wiper. He had his own house to protect himself there. Even when TNA and the URP came together, when they formed the first government, William Ruto had his own party inside there. So Gachagua right now, last week Gachagua demanded an apology from the local dailies that alluded to the fact that he was out there shopping for a political party.
In fact, they talked about the Democratic Party.
The Democratic Party. It is for a fact that Gachagua has to look for a political party for him to survive the political onslaught that is targeted at him. So that once Gachagua has his own party, the movement of Democratic Party, such a thing, he will have a saying when it comes to politicking. Why? Because the mountain is restless. And that's why he's saying, I'm not the only person who should fight for your interest. Ask your members of parliament. Ask these other people who are holding plum positions. And you heard Moses Kuria fight back and say, when we go to the mountain, what are we telling the people? When we have the deputy presidency, when we have 9 key ministries or key positions within government. But the mountain is not feeling that. The mountain is all about what policies is there to favor me. And that is the game that now Gachagua is playing. That's why we are saying, I do submit, maybe I may not agree with Wakili, but what I'm saying is, Gachagua will be relevant for the next 3 years in government. The government is going to move on. Because what is the function of a deputy president? The media, you people in the media fraternity was very quick to question where was the deputy president when the president was leaving for the US? Is the work of the deputy president, have we reduced the work of the deputy president to showing up and greeting the president, waving to the president when he embarks on a plane? No.
You see, the thing is...
Let me finish my conversation here. When you look back to even during the Moi era, even from the Kenyatta's era, the vice president was attached with a ministry so that this man can also be busy in the office. That's why you see the President Moi, he was even from Murumba Oginga Odinga's time, he had a ministry under him. Moi had a ministry under him as a deputy president. Even Saitoti had a ministry as a vice president. Kalonzo, even when the 202 NAC government, when Wamalwa was appointed a vice president without portfolio, people from the Western started murmuring. And that's how he was given as a Minister of Regional Development or such a position. Kalonzo Musyoka, Mudia Wori, all these people have had ministries. But it was during the Kenyatta era that the deputy president didn't have a portfolio. And you saw the chaos that the Jubilee government ended up with. Again, we are having another case whereby a deputy president is a principal deputy of the president. So it means that this person, when the president is in the office, what else is Gachagua supposed to do? The deputy president, as the framers of this constitution, and Wakilia will judge me, is that they were over-optimistic about the Kenyan society and the Kenyan political growth trajectory, that they gave us a too advanced constitution that we were unable to match. And that's why we are finding a deputy president who is very idle. And in this idleness, anytime his underbelly is exposed, he has to run back to his backyard. And as Wakili has put it right, you must wipe up the emotions of your region so they feel that we are exposed. But we only have one person who is speaking for us, and this person is who? Rigathi Gachagua. The rest are in government with plumb position, but they are silent.
Now, you don't talk about the roles of a deputy president. Now, Wakili, you talked about Gachagua being irrelevant. Now, one of the key things that Gachagua was given, the mandate that was given by the president, was to sort out the mess in the coffee sector and the tea sector. He convened a stakeholders meeting. It will be, today is on the 4th.
Yes.
The forum was held on the 8th. 8th to 10th, to 11th actually, of June 2023. It is almost 1 year later. Coffee farmers are still decrying. Their bonuses have not been paid. Now, how does he go back to the people to talk about one man, 1 shilling, 1 vote, about advancing the interest of Mount Kenya region, when this one issue that affects millions of Mount Kenya farmers, because there's the tea sector, the milk sector, the coffee sector, and all that, the issues have not been addressed, yet he is the main person who was given that mandate to address those issues.
Definitely, he hasn't addressed them, and he will not address them. The thing is that he already has an excuse, and he has created it so perfectly. I'm not saying the deputy president is, I don't say that I like his kind of politics. The politics of shares, the politics of just trying to ethnically mobilize the mountain against every other tribe. But one thing, it's very clear that this will work to his advantage. I want us to look at two things here. One, you see, what brought the Rigathi Gachagua and RUTO, or the mountain and the Rift Valley in the last election, it was because they were fighting a common enemy. You see, their confidence are friends who love you for who you are. They are ready to take a bullet for you. And there are those who are called comrades. Comrades, we unite, for example, with Wabuga here. We unite to fight a common enemy. And once that enemy is eliminated, we remain now to fight among ourselves. So the common enemy at that point was none other than Raila Odinga, not even Uhuru Kenyatta. The mountain has been mobilized and has been brought up to hate Raila, because that has been the voting pattern ever since. And so anything that sides with Raila is a no for them, and you can easily whip their emotions. So that is what happened in the previous election, that they were not joined because of their ideologies. They were joined because they were fighting a common enemy. And then they brought it about as a dynasty versus hustler nation, which resonated well with the electorates. But now we also want to look at the mountain. Mountains, as compared to most of the counties in the western region, the mountain is a bit capitalist in a way. They acquire wealth for themselves. They do not have that ujama, so that when it is our turn to eat, it should be us to the exclusion of the rest. So when Raila has slowly slipped into government, because that is the main thing that we are not talking about here. As much as we are talking about the deputy president and the president being apart, the main cause here is, number one, the infights that the deputy president wants to remain relevant and wants to bargain. But the other thing, they feel like they fought Raila, but Raila still is in government. I heard Rani say the other day, Wamushomba and also Malala, the SG. He said Raila is one of the biggest professors of politics that we've ever met, because he has never been in opposition. Each and every moment, you will chase him to, you'll send him to Bondo, and he will board the first vehicle, Ena coach, or even Easy coach. He'll find himself in opposition on paper. Yeah, he'll find himself at the State House. So that is something that the mountains, and that's something that the Rigathi Gachagua knows. That in the coming election 2027, and I've always opined in this platform that if Ruto would side with the mountain, it will just be for convenience and it will not be a very strong ticket. There is a likelihood that President Ruto would get a running mate from the western region, either Nyanza or western region. You've seen even when there is tree planting, the ministers who are sent to Nyanza, it's either Kipchumba, the confidence, Kipchumba Murkomen is always in Homa Bay, and you will be asking yourself, what is he doing in Homa Bay? So be very aware that the deputy or president already knows that that is a scheme, and they are fighting Raila. As much as they are fighting Ruto, they are fighting Raila. Number two, look at the cabinet secretaries who came out to even defend the president. They're actually trying to, was it necessary for the president in the first place to come out and respond to Rigathi Gachagua in public and actually instruct MPs to Tanga, go there, and he is trying to show the public that yes, there are rifts, and he's trying to get rid of Gachagua. You saw what Aden Duale said, even this politics surrounding Mugoka, it's all political, because is it something that has ever been brought? I'm not saying it's something that should be looked at, but the way it has been taken, it's also being used as a war against Rigathi Gachagua. And one thing that I will tell you, Ian, is that in politics, every publicity is good. And I have always said, when you attack Rigathi Gachagua, you are going to build him. Right now, everyone is talking about Rigathi Gachagua. We are sitting here talking about Rigathi Gachagua. What are we doing? We are giving him latitude. We are giving him credence. And before you know it, Rigathi Gachagua would be the most popular politicians. That is what Ruto did when everyone was talking about Ruto and sympathizing with him. Right now, we are sympathizing with Gachagua. He became the president. We prayed for him.
Fair enough. Mr. Abunge, sorry. Now, Wakili has talked about the Raila Odinga factor and him being in government. I want to ask you this question. If at all Rigathi Gachagua manages to, bring Uhuru Kenyatta back to his fold and probably teams up with the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka, where does this leave Raila Odinga? Does William Ruto now look at Raila Odinga and probably see him as a kingmaker come 2027 in terms of, if at all, he will go for running mate from the western region? Because we do know that regardless of President William Ruto being in power, Raila Odinga commands not only the Nyanza region, but the western region. So, if at all Gachagua in 2027 is not picked as a running mate, and President William Ruto picks a running mate from western Kenya, will that be the moment for Raila Odinga to say, Ruto Tosha, if at all his bid to be the AUC chairperson is successful, because it is being backed seriously by President William Ruto?
Yeah, I think Raila Odinga is the alchemist when it comes to Kenyan politics. He knows the time to speak, he knows when to keep quiet. And Wakili has put it rightly here that, the common enemy during the electioneering period was sending Baba to Bondo on a wheelbarrow. But unfortunately, Baba caught a flight back to Nairobi in the shortest time that we will have anticipated. Nobody will have said or even predicted at any point that Ruto, Raila, there will be a truce. But right now we are seeing that Baba is so deep in government, and this is what is settling the mountain. Wamchomba was out recently and said, you see, even our son Uhuru has been put aside, and right now Raila, whom we fought, is inside government, where we are supposed to do. He's actually enjoying, the warmth within government instead of the cold that we anticipated he will be facing in Bondo. Now, every leader has realized that Raila Odinga is just not the pulse of Luo, Nyanza and Western. He's the pulse of the Kenyan politics. He sets the pace of how the Kenyan politics is going to work. And he didn't start with Uhuru Kenyatta with a handshake. You remember that after the first multi-party election in Kenya, after Moi won the first multi-party election, and he realized that, he was struggling. He had to bring in KANU. KANU had to bring in NDP and made Raila a minister and a secretary general of KANU. That calm down, the political pressures at that particular point, and Moi was able to finish. Okay, he didn't finish his term peacefully, because that was now the time he also now anointed Uhuru Kenyatta to run for president, and then Nak was born. We also saw the same thing, what happened to Kibaki when Kibaki was unable to honor the MOU with Raila Odinga. The referendum in 2005 came, and Raila led the orange troops that humbled Kibaki in a way that, a government of the day has never lost in the world, the way Kibaki lost the referendum at that particular point. Again, it was another thing to realize that this man is needed in the political circle. We all know, and even a child who was born, who was there during that time, that indeed Raila Odinga won the 2007 election. But whatever happened, happened. Come to, again, when Raila was pushed, was on the other side, and Uhuru Kenyatta realized that for this Mugoroki, whom he had called Mugoroki during the election, for him to have a peaceful leadership, he needed to bring this guy back. That is why we had, again, the handshake government. William Ruto realized that to run Kenya with Raila Odinga speaking, it was going to be hard. Because when Raila speaks today, that we need to go to the airport, even before he wakes up from his current home, people will be already on their way where? To JKIA. So for Ruto to settle down and have some policies that will make sense, he needed Raila Odinga. And this is what is making the mountain very restless. The kind of support that the government has taken over the candidature of the leader of opposition is giving, Ruto the international media spectrum that maybe he didn't anticipate. People are seeing some form of statementship in this man. And if Raila gets that position of AU, Ruto will have gone into history books. His name will be written in golden letters of this country by saying, this president picked his opponent and supported him. And that this is where Mount Kenya cannot rest. Because immediately, William Ruto endorsed Baba. Senator for Kiambu asked the president, as he was leaving the stage, and said, we have seen Raila Odinga has been chosen. Where is our son Uhuru Kenyatta? And he stepped out of the podium.
Yes, I remember. Karungo Thangwa.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yes.
And then there was a talk that, Uhuru Kenyatta is actually engaging Kikwete, for Kikwete to oppose who? Raila. And these stories grew until at this point, we have not had Uhuru Kenyatta come out strongly to endorse Baba's candidature. As much as he has talked about it, he has not come out strongly to endorse Baba's candidature. This is what is making Mount Kenya not to rest. And if Baba goes through, before ODM gets a strong leader who will present himself with the strength, the tenacity, and the temerity of Baba, it will take time for an opposition candidate to come out such strong to the capability of Baba to challenge the 2027 election bid. And this is where now Gachagua comes into play. Gachagua said that his main role was to supervise State House, the State House, so that this man cannot be seen anywhere near State House. But we are seeing actually Baba attending all conferences.
Sitting with presidents.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Wakili, I don't know to you, because like Wabuge has rightly put it, the whole fact of the AUC chairperson's said, or chairmanship, has not gone well with a section of Mount Kenya residents and leaders, because they see the decision by President William Ruto to push Raila Odinga, to push the Raila Odinga candidature for that seat as not the right move. Now, like I asked him, if Raila Odinga wins that seat, and Uhuru Kenyatta teams with Gachagua, and saying, you see, I will support Gachagua because the government of the day is not really, advancing our interests. Will it be time for William Ruto to say and tell Raila Odinga, I scratched your back, scratch my back?
Ian, one thing about political discussions, they are not done in public. They are done in boardrooms, and they are injected slowly by slowly. Already, I will tell you that Raila will not run in 2027. And it's something I will always repeat. If he runs, he will be just doing it as a Trojan horse. There was a handshake between President Ruto and Raila Odinga in Mombasa. The handshake was presided over by the former Nigerian president. And this caught everyone by surprise, including Rigathi Gachagua. So with this handshake, they started injecting slowly by slowly. They injected the NADCO. After NADCO took shape, they started injecting the AU seat. And right now, everyone is silent. Raila is very silent because he's very okay. There is a discussion. And so he's here to watch how things are folding up. So in 2027, it will be very interesting to see Raila Odinga, William Ruto, Musalia Mudavadi on the same platform. And then Kalonzo will remain isolated. Kalonzo will go and team up with Rigathi Gachagua. And right now, what Ruto is trying to do, he is also trying to use the sons of the mountain to fight the mountain and also elevate them so that everyone else sees the mountain as very unreasonable and selfish. Then it will also be a very easy way to mobilize the rest to support him as against the central. So take this to the bank. In 2027, if at all there will be a race, it will be between the president, maybe, and the mountains could be a very weak candidate like maybe one new face. But in 2032, the mountain will be in opposition. Now, but the other thing I would want to point before you just...
I want us to take a brief break.
It's okay.
And then we'll be back. We're taking a brief break, but when we come back, I want to ask you, gentlemen, will Rigathi Gachagua be on the same ballot with President William Ruto come 2027? And if not, will Gachagua himself be on the ballot? And who will President William Ruto pick? That will be after this short break. And of course, we'll hear what the president had to say in response to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua talking about him foreseeing darkness, because the president said, I want the priests to pray for people who are, talking about seeing darkness for the country in the coming weeks. That will be immediately after this short break. Don't go away.
Tunafurahia kuwa hapa maeneo ya Iego Primary School na bila shaka leo watu wengi watapokea chakula. Leo kutakuwa na furaha katika nyumba nyingi. Vile vile pia tunafurahia kwa sababu kuna tangi, kumekuwa na shida ya maji hapa. Kutakuwa na kidogo tutakuwa tumetatua. Kama kawaida yote ni kwa hisani ya Tatua Tatu.
Tunashukuru sana Tatua Tatu. I am proud to be associated with Tatua Tatu. Tunafurahia sana na tuendelee hivyo hivyo na Mungu atazidi kutuinua.
Kila wakati ambapo unacheza Tatua Tatu unafanikisha shughuli hii. Kwa hivyo usichoke, endelea kucheza, huenda ukashinda, lakini wakati ambapo pia unacheza kuna wengine wanashinda. Shukrani sana.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
tu taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup. Kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hawa sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi mazuri.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
The future of our nation is great. We are a great nation. We are a blessed country. Na msikubali, na waomba kwa unyenyekevu, wale wanaotutabiria giza na kututabiria maovu kule mbele, hizo ndimi naomba maaskofu muombe zikome. Because this nation, and I am speaking as the leader of this great nation, this nation is a blessed nation. This nation is going places. Tumepata heshima bara la Afrika, tumepata heshima duniani kote. Uchumi wa Kenya inainuka. Tunazalisha chakula Kenya hata ndani ya changamoto. Chakula sasa imepatikana kwa bei nafuu. And I am very confident about the future of our nation. I am very confident about the future of Kenya. What we need is to stay united, to stay focused, and to plan properly, working together.
Well, that was the president directly responding to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. If probably you had any doubts in terms of whether these guys are reading from the same script, that is the president and the deputy. Now, there you have it. Because the DP earlier on, a day before, talked about him foreseeing darkness. He said, I'm not too clever and I'm not a fool either. But from where I sit, I see someone plotting for the Mt.Kenya region. Plotting against, rather, for the Mt.Kenya, plotting against the Mt.Kenya region. And he said, I'm foreseeing darkness. And you've heard the president respond. Wakil, even as you finish up on the sentiments that, whatever you're telling us. Now, was that the final nail on the coffin? Just to know that, yes, indeed, these guys are not reading from the same script.
There are more nails. That is just a bit of it. It's trying to hide emotions here and there, trying to respond how he did. But that is a clear indication that there is all is not well in paradise, and he is out looking for a replacement. He is not hiding it. He has told the young members of parliament, traverse this country. He's telling them that I want to see your might. That is basically what he's trying to tell them, that I want to see your might. Because honestly speaking, I'm not going to go back with Rigathi Gachagua in 2027. because already the differences are irreconcilable. If the differences could be reconcilable, they would have been talked about in boardrooms and in meetings, in cabinet meetings. They could just take a phone call. But you see, they are exposing it. The president is not around. The DP flies to Rift Valley. He calls a host of MPs and he tells them that your people are causing havoc in Mount Kenya. You should stick to Rift Valley and not to Mount Kenya. And he singles out some very powerful individuals. He didn't call them outrightly, but then he insinuated, and they got a response. He talked about Sudi.
People in terms of close confidence.
Yes, Sudi, Kipchumba Murkomen, and also Farouk Kibet. If you attack those people, you attack the president directly. Because if the president wants to advance something, for example, he'll use Sudi. If Raila wants to advance something, for example, he'll use Junet. If Junet speaks, that's Raila. If Uhuru, for example, wants to advance something, he'll always use Jeremiah Kioni. And whatever Jeremiah Kioni speaks, that is what Uhuru speaks.
Same way, the same thing Mt.Kenya says is the same thing that the DP Gachagua is trying to say.
Yeah, so the DP Gachagua right now is trying to use the Mt.Kenya, and you see where it will end. So that was the first mistake. The other mistake was the Uhuru. If at all Uhuru wanted to mend this relationship, he would have not responded to him the way he did. The way he actually told the members of parliament that proceed and tanga. The same sentiments he had the other side. Why? It's because he has mastered this politics. He has been in that terrain. He knew how he navigated it. And Deputy President also was in that terrain. Rigathi Gachagua saw the president, navigate that terrain. So you see, the Deputy President then, who is now the President, RUTO, has the benefit of knowing how Uhuru dealt with him, and he can even deal with Rigathi Gachagua in a very serious manner. He also knew how he dealt with Uhuru Kenyatta. So he has two experiences. The other thing about this whole problem is also look at the UDA grassroots election, and you see there is open defiance. Sakaja openly telling the Deputy President to stop bullying people around. You can't say that if all is well. You can't say that without the blessings of the president. No. And that tells you that already the divorce is there, and they have already mobilized their troops to fight against each other or to fight at Rigathi Gachagua. You've seen the military choppers. It's something that we all see, and that means that marriage is already terminated. It's just waiting for the papers.
Now, Mr. Abuge, it's interesting because I wanted to talk about that. This is the issue of military choppers, because they now say Gachagua has been denied military choppers 3 times. Now, before the president came out now clearly to respond to Gachagua, Oscar Sudi did respond, because when the DP accused him of kutanga-tanga and all that, he responded a day after. And even while responding, he had been sent by the president to deliver his donation of 2 million shillings, while the DP was also around. Now, Kipchumba Murkomen also responded, though not directly. Yet he has talked about Nairobi Governor Arthur Johnson Sakaja responding directly to Rigathi Gachagua last week during the UDA delegates, Nairobi delegates at Bomas of Kenya. And he said, umesumbua watu for the past 2 years. Ukiguzwa kidogo unalia, unaona kujificha kwa msitu. That was a direct attack at the deputy president, because the DP earlier on in the week also said he will fight to restore the lost glory of Nairobi. And in fact, in the UDA Nairobi elections, it is said that Gachagua has been supporting Dagoretti, James Gakuya rather, for the chairmanship seat. And that is the reason as to why also it came out as Sakaja was directly attacking the DP. But now the president has also come out strongly to oppose the deputy president. So has the president been probably trying to communicate through his lieutenants, but it felt like the message is not coming out clearly? Now let me address it as the head of state.
Yeah, I think the battle is fully blown out. The president and the deputy president are now fighting, with their troops. Now their troops have come on board, and what we are seeing is, a besieged deputy president who has had to go back to his, Mt.Kenya region and wipe up emotions, tribal emotions, to realize that as a community, we are under attack. And as much as the president is using now these younger leaders around Mount Kenya, but one thing we also know about Mount Kenya is when it comes to the election period, Mount Kenya has proven that it's all about performance. You remember at one point, I don't know if it is the last general election, where the entire of Nyeri County sent all their members of parliament packing. So wherever Gachagua is playing, he has gone back to his tribal base, try to galvanize it, try to provoke them and tell them we are under attack. If at all we don't stand together in unity, these people have the capacity to destroy us. But when you come to the political arithmetic between now to 2032, Gachagua and the mountain are in a cul-de-sac. It will be dangerous for them to jump out, and their interests also will not be fully served when they remain inside. So the mountain is in a dire crisis. How they navigate the cul-de-sac that they found themselves in is what is going to, bring the best out of them. And now a new leader might emerge if it's not the Gachagua and Ndindi rivalry. But now when you look at it again and ask yourself, what are the key issues that the mountain and Gachagua and the president are fighting over? The president, Gachagua has humiliated, has been humiliated right now 3 times in a span of the last 1 year. And that is what made Mutahi Kahiga say, kama mbaya, mbaya. He declared that we are not going to allow our son to be humiliated. Now, when you look at this position of the vice presidency, initially that's why we say the framers of the constitution, whatever they had in mind, had not thought of the Kenyan society and the challenges that we go through and maybe our growth patterns in terms of our political engagement. When you look at any vice president or deputy president who has been very, combative when it comes to politics, you have to look for a way of how to handle him. We saw during the Kenyatta era, Oginga Odinga was a combative politician who spoke his mind. Did he survive on that seat? Unfortunately, he did not. Daniel Moi survived because he played as the rule of his master. And that's why even when Jomo Kenyatta passed on, to the minds of all handlers actually they called Moi a passing cloud. They knew there's nowhere this man is going. This man is politically mature. This man is too vulnerable. This man is weak. But they didn't know that this man submitted to learn the tricks of the game. And that is the man who maybe the Kenyan history will go down the history lines as the president who ruled Kenya the longest. Yet when he served his master like, I'm here to be seen and never to be heard. Now, when you look at the likes of Mudi Awori and Kalonzo Musyoka, they played calm, thinking that Kalonzo knew that maybe Mwai Kibaki will endorse him, but that didn't happen. So, a combative Gachagua in this kind of setup, he is to William Ruto what William Ruto was to Uhuru Kenyatta, an extremely combative deputy president who is willing to go against the grain and now go back to his backyard and now start mopping up tribal emotions, already knowing that the mountain the mountain's underbelly is already exposed.
But is it too early?
It is not early, it is the reality. It is the dissenting voices in the mountain that cannot allow Gachagua to be comfortable in that seat. Even if things were going well, had Gachagua been comfortable in that seat right now, he will be losing the mountain. That is why all these events are well calculated, so that the masses in Mount Kenya start realizing that our son is being humiliated. And that's why they say that as much as we are punishing him, we are ready to forgive. Gachagua is still our son. He's the son of our Mau Mau. He made a mistake. But as we punish him, let him come back to the fold. Let us go back on the drawing board as Mount Kenya. And that's why Gathoni Mushomba is championing key interests, saying our people are being sacked from the government. Why are we not speaking? Our people are being overtaxed. Why are we not speaking? That dissenting voice is a strong voice that Gachagua needs to ride on. And that's why he has taken this kind of a political trajectory, so that to his people of the mountain he says, I'm your son. I've been there, but I've seen what they are planning for you. I cannot sit with them and know that they want to destroy us when I'm there. So allow me to speak. Let me shout about it. And this is what is going to set up the other mountain, the members of parliament and other leaders within the mountain. Because when you ask yourself, what capital project of this government is happening in the mountain right now? What capital project is happening in the mountain right now? What is it that the mountain can look at and say, our shares in the Kenya Kwanza government are serving this? What is there apart from positions? And we all know, and that's what Gachagua is saying, that on every position that a Mount Kenya leader has, yes, he is a de jure CS, but there is a de facto CS who is there to controlling things. Okay. Gachagua might be the de jure deputy president of Kenya, but there might be another de facto deputy president. That's why he's uncomfortable and he cannot sit there. Hence, he has to fight, he has to rebel, he has to go out. And that's why we are just telling the president that, behold, this is the deputy president that you are to Uhuru Kenyatta.
Now, Wakili.
Yes.
Ndindi Nyoro has spoken, Anne Mumbi Waiguru has spoken, Moses Kuria has spoken. We cannot underestimate the sentiments of the National Assembly Majority Whip, Silvana Sosoro. Because a few weeks ago, he came out and said, listen, what do you guys want? Talking about Mount Kenya, what do you guys want? If it's leadership in the National Assembly, you do have it. If it's in the cabinet, you do have several cabinet secretaries. If it's in terms of the chairmanship of key committees in the National Assembly, you guys do have it. In fact, he said, Ntosheke. Now, was that again the president speaking? But again, I want to ask you one thing. If at all, the scenario that we're talking about, President William Ruto picks a running mate in 2027 from another region, probably the Western region, where does it leave the likes of Ndindi Nyoro and Anne Waiguru?
You see, East or West, home is best. They will all go back home. After all this moving are up and down, there is always settling home. And that is why last year, 2022, Raila did not get much. He had very senior politicians who were around him. People like Wamatangi, they were around Raila. Even Kaiga himself was around Raila. Moses Kuria was supporting BBI. But as things went by, they slowly went back to their shed and spoke in one voice against Uhuru Kenyatta and against Raila Odinga. So all these politics right now, that's why Rigathi Gachagua is running ahead of them, so that it takes up the mantle of the kingpinship. So that when Akina and Ndindi Nyoro come, they will come in as members. So he can another kuwapanga. That is number one. Number two, I also want to take you back, and this is one thing that I find very interesting about the DP Gachagua. DP Gachagua led the onslaught against BBI. And you see, already Uhuru Kenyatta had foreseen that this would happen. And that is why he was creating, Uhuru Kenyatta was actually not supporting Raila for Raila. He was supporting Raila to protect his people. He knew that Raila would easily be controlled considering his age. He would place strategic people around him. Already you saw the deputy president, he chose for Raila. That is Martha Karua. It's not she's a no-nonsense lady. And there were so many serious people. Number two, in order to protect the community, he went and introduced the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. Which basically, even if they were not in government, then it will be very easy for the people of the mountain to actually gain to the expense of the others. So all these things Ruto already knew. And so that's why he introduced that card of dynasty versus hustlers. And it resonated well with the people, and he got all these members of parliament to support him. Right now, they have come to realize that indeed we shot ourselves on the foot, and we cannot now get back to where we were. And introducing this right now without our person being at the top, it will be very hard to get. So that is something they are regretting, and they will continue to regret it. But if you talk about Ndindi Nyoro, talking about Ichung'wah, talking about Moses Kuria, I'm told Moses Kuria is supposed to make a statement in August, I think August 24th or 23rd. I don't know which that statement will be. They will be walking away from, resigning from government, I don't know. But truth be told, as things are right now, the deputy president already has an upper hand. And if the deputy president gets the support of the former president, because right now they are regretting and they wish they listened to the president. You see, when wishes become horses and they fail to come horses and beggars can't ride, they go back and they repent of their sins. And how do they repent of their sins? They go back to the president and the former president. We are wrong. We were wrong. Okay. We were misled. And this is what happened. And then the president unites with Rigathi Gachagua. And then they form one party. Then Raila goes to the Western and appoints a deputy president. And in 2032, whatever Uhuru did not achieve, he achieves it by bringing another new person other than a person from the mountain and Rift Valley to be the president. Then what happens? The mountain will remain the de facto and de jure opposition leaders for a very long time.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the politics of Mogoka, because it also affects the Mount Kenya region. Now, the president on the 28th of May 2024 tweeted and he said, "I've engaged the governors of Mombasa, Kilifi and Taita Taveta counties on their concerns and challenges in the sale of Mogoka. The governors have agreed to participate in a meeting of all stakeholders to be convened by the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock this week, as we agreed with the leadership of Embu County on Monday. We agreed subsequently to convene a meeting of political leaders of the affected counties next week." That was on the 28th. Now, yesterday, Mombasa Governor Abdul Samad Sharif Nasser tweeted and he said, "As the governors of the Jumuiya counties of Pwani bring together Mombasa, Kilifi, Taita Taveta, Kwale and Lamu, we have jointly resolved to politely decline the invitation to meet with the Honorable Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture on the issue of Mogoka. Mogoka is not simply an agricultural issue, it is a matter of health, well-being and indeed the security of our people, and needs to be treated with the seriousness it deserves." They released a statement signed by Gideon Mongaro, the governor of Kilifi, himself, Sharif Nasser of Mombasa, Fatma Chani of Kwale County, Godana Dado of Tana River, Timami of Lamu, and of course Andrew Mwadime, the governor of Taita Taveta. Now, this statement was released immediately, just a few hours after President William Ruto had left the country for South Korea. Days after he said and tweeted he had spoken to the three governors on call. What does it mean?
We also saw the CS for Gender, Aisha Juma,
yes,
also coming in and strongly opposing the Mogoka cell in the coastal region. And Chinua Achebe says
even dually.
Even Chinua Achebe puts it and says, when the alligator comes out of the water and he tells you the crocodile is sick, who are you to doubt? There must be a reason as to why the coastal governors, Jumuiya ya Pwani, are rejecting the sale of Mogoka. What if we assume and say the deputy president has fought alcoholism in Central and actually decried and said our population is not growing because our sons are unable. And recently, after 2 years fight, he said, "I'm excited walking in Central and seeing our women pregnant." So what if that is the same challenge bedeviling coast? What if the governors of Mombasa have seen that the sale of Mogoka is ravaging the life of this young generation? What if their cry is genuine? Why should the government on one end fight alcoholism and support, you know, give out resources in the fight against alcohol that we know has been messing up the lives and the livelihoods of the young people in Central. But again, on the other side, Mogoka is also messing up the lives and the livelihoods of the young people in Central. But on this one, since it is grown from Central, you want us to call a round table. That one is the irony of the leadership that we have. What needs to be done is we need to have a sober reassessment of some of these decisions. We need to have a sober assessment of this plant. Why have we not legalized marijuana for medical purposes? Yet all over the world, isn't it not a plant? We Westerners say that our soil will have supported marijuana growth and maybe our economic livelihoods will have transformed overnight. But why has it not been legalized? These are the hard questions that we need to ask and ask ourselves the same question. When Jumuiya ya Pwani says, why can this plant be consumed within the central counties? Because the same counties that you are fighting are more, the counties that are decrying the ban of Mogoka, they are more than where the Mogoka needs to be transported to. So it is a clash of you know, humanitarian grounds, saving these people from addiction, and the economic angle that it is presenting itself. And these are burning the mountain again, because the entire mountain is also affected, and they're asking themselves, what is our economic livelihood?
Okay, fair enough. Wakili, you've also talked about because Aden Duale did say, and in fact he tweeted and said, the fight against drug and substance abuse calls for a collective, whole of society approach. As we fight the production, distribution and consumption of illicit brew, with the same emphasis, we must combat other substances, Mogoka included. There have been calls, in fact, not even from politicians, but people you'd perceive as friends and probably confidants of President William Ruto, including Aloy Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi. He's a friend of the president. They've been calling on the governors from the northern part of Kenya to also ban Mogoka. But again, the president has been, you know, on the forefront trying to find a solution, because he's facing pressure from Embu County and even the residents of Meru County, because like Mr. Abuget says, it is, you want to say, a backbone in terms of their economy, because they depend on it for their daily lives, to fend for their families, pay school fees. Where does it leave the president?
I have a brother called Dan. It's very interesting. When we were very young, he would make us fight. You see how he makes young boys fight, eh? And he supports one, then later, he would, when he's asked, why are you letting these guys fight, he would start caning us. And of course, he will cane the one who was the one who was fighting the brother harder. Atanipea kiboko moja and then sends you home. That is what is happening in government. Already, this when I saw Duale tweet and the position he took, I knew this was very political. Mogoka is not an issue that has just come up today. It's not coming up today. It's been there for a very long time. But there is something that the politicians wish to portray out there, especially those who are aligned to the president. They want to tell the people that the deputy president is very ethnic in his approach and in his tactics. He will only fight for what benefits Mt.Kenya to the exclusion of the rest, even if it means hurting the rest. He fought alcoholism vehemently, and he is celebrating that they have won that war against alcohol in the mountain. Yet our sons are addicted to this Mogoka thing, and it is causing health crisis. And so that is something that the allies of the president wants to portray out there. Number two, look at it also from who is the cabinet secretary of agriculture. Mithika Linturi, and we've seen the history. And now he already convened a meeting. If the president wanted this meeting to happen in the first place, it would have happened. The coastal governors have even met him at State House. The president cannot make a call, yet the cabinet secretary for gender and Aden Duale, plus the governors who already came to visit him, they speak on another, they speak from another point, speak other things which do not conform with what he's saying. He is more like my brother. Now, if he could be exposing the DP out there, but again, he wants to use it as an advantage that the deputy president did not even. He was so opinionated and objected to forcing Mogoka to the coastal region without listening to them. Then he comes, calls them, and they get into an agreement. Then who wins? It is the president who wins. I agree. Health issues, when it comes to health matters, it supersedes anything, because we cannot consume something that will be very detrimental to our health. In the circumstances, then we need to look at this. They are laid out procedures how inter-counties can resolve disputes. We need to go and sit down and objectively address this without so many sideshows. Otherwise, we will just be playing another politics.
Now, Wabuge, how does, in as much as you've talked about the same way they're fighting the effects of illicit brew is being felt in central Kenya, could be the same way the effects of Mogoka is being felt in the coastal region, especially on the youth. But would you look at it again from the angle of the ban hurting inter-county trade or business?
Yes, it will hurt business, but sometimes we are faced by a morality issue. And that's why my brother here, Wakili, has alluded to it, saying, the health concern supersede any other gain. Yes, the intra-county trade is at a stake here. But we are asking ourselves, should we sustain the inter-country economic trade and lose an entire generation? We know the effects of Mogoka. We know how hard it is also messing up, families. Just as the same hue and cry that the Mt.Kenya governors had when they were fighting illicit brew and saying that our women are crying because our husband cannot perform. That is also the Jumia, the cry in Jumia Yapwani, saying our sons have been messed up by this thing. Our population is also not growing. The number of our pregnant women is declining by day. Why? Because our sons cannot perform. Our men cannot perform. So it is a tight schedule here. But again, when you look at the threats from the central, the counties around Mount Kenya on banning intra-county trade, you ask ourselves, illicit brew fight was fought from State House down because of the younger generation. Why can't we have a sober conversation and say this thing is harmful to our health? How do we deal with it? The same case when we are talking of GMO and saying GMO, we are not ready for GMO. Is it that sometimes this government is just not ready to make hard decisions and hard choices? So the issue of Mogoka is at a place whereby we need to make hard decisions. By now, I think they will have appointed a task force to investigate the challenges or the reasons as to why the coastal governors and all the leadership are saying no to Mogoka. Maybe there's something that us we are not seeing. Maybe we need to have a consensus that realize what will be better, sustaining economic prowess or restoring a generation that is being lost to this thing. It is a fact. It is a fact that Mogoka has detrimental impact on health and on family. The key unit that, this government talks of family unit in a very huge way. So that is also the same that is eating up the coastal region. And let's listen to them. Let's have a sober reassessment. Let's have a sober discussion. Let's have a hard conversation so that we have a win-win situation for both these counties and these people, so that at least we save a generation. Just as we supported the fight of illicit brew on the mountain, we need also to support these governors as they fight the effects of Mogoka at the coastal region.
Now, Wakili, let's talk about the powers that counties do have, because one person who has sort of come out to support these counties in one way or not is Senate Majority Leader Aaron Cheruiyot, and he said on the 27th of May, he tweeted and said, "It's a noble thing for the coastal counties to seek to regulate the distribution of Mogoka in their turf. However, the truth is counties have no such powers. The best thing for the counties to do is to lobby their MPs to present before Parliament a bill seeking to ban the use of Mogoka."
When it comes to legalization, it's something that, or legalization of any drug, it's something that is a preserve of the of Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate. You remember we have a bicameral type of legislature here, where there is any issue that concerns the county. If it comes to inter-county trade, which that borders, then the counties have the latitude to discuss it and make an agreement on their trade arrangements. But when it comes to banning Mogoka as a drug, then that is something that has to be done by the National Assembly, that by appealing the existing laws. So I agree to some extent with Aaron Cheruiyot, but then I would want to say that both of them have a stake. Both of them have a role to play when it with regards to the Mogoka issue or any other drug that may pose any health challenge to a human life. And one thing, Ian, you must agree, and I agree with my brother Kabuga here, is that you cannot sacrifice your health on the cross of business. You cannot exchange health with business, because without that health, without that, without yourself, you cannot trade in the first place. We also want to see an approach whereby all these county governments and all the stakeholders that are involved would go and do a proper analysis. We would want to see a law that is based on a scientific proof, not just emotions and not just trade interests. So that when we get to that point, then everyone agrees that indeed the Mogoka thing is hazardous to all of us, and we have to regulate it in one way or the other.
Okay. Mr. Abuge, even as you wrap up this particular conversation, because Mogoka is yet another thing that has brought a lot of conversation and heat to the Mt.Kenya politics, because apart from coffee, tea, this is one thing that the region highly depends on in terms of it being a backbone of the economy. Now, back to the issue of Rigathi Gachagua, because this is also one thing that he has not come out to, clearly address and say, this is my view on this. Now, even as he faces all this sort of, what his allies term as humiliation and all that, how easy or how hard is it for him to navigate through and find, a proper way forward, or a route to take that will, not only ensure that he has the entire support of the Mt.Kenya region, but also find leverage within the Kenya Kwanza government, or has that bargaining power?
Yeah, I think first of all, on the Mogoka issue, the deputy president is right to keep quiet. He has no moral authority to speak about it. It will be a double standard for him, knowing that, everybody supported him in terms of his fight against illicit brew in Central. And the second lady, Pastor Dorcas, is doing an amazing job championing the rights of the boy child. And, just for once, the boy child didn't have a champion. Pastor Dorcas Regathi is doing a good job championing the rights of the boy child, going out to the trenches, encouraging and giving a chance to those boy child whose lives have been messed up by alcohol. So for the Deputy President to come up and speak regarding the issues surrounding Muguka and Coast, he'll be the one of the most ironic twists of his fight. And he will have put Lady Pastor Dorcas at a very precarious position in his current fight for the boy child. So for me, where I sit, I will advise the Deputy President that as much as it might cost you politically, keep quiet on the issue of Muguka, because the people at the coast are also suffering. And the work that your wife has put in can only be enhanced by the ban of Muguka at the coast. And actually we want to see Pastor Dorcas engaging, embracing these at the coast, going to also help these these men who are deeply, addicted to this thing. So for this, I want to call upon the Deputy President and the second family to keep quiet, give it a blackout, only go there once a decision has been made to help those young men recover back.
What if the decision that is finally made affects the people of Mt.Kenya economically?
It is going to affect them, but there comes a time where you have to choose the right thing. As much as it will affect your political, chances,
then it also brings.
There comes a time you must stand on the truth, and the truth is, the Rigathi Gachagua has successfully fought illicit brew in Mt.Kenya, and he is on the verge of winning the battle. And we are excited seeing Mt.Kenya women pregnant, knowing that, the Mount Kenyan population can only grow. And by any chance, if the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote ever gets its way into the Kenyan population, they look back and thank Rigathi Gachagua for fighting illicit brew. So some battles you don't have to win now, you win in installment. He'll go down the history lane to have saved a generation, but also having lost some part of it by standing right on the principles of what is right and what is wrong.
Wakili, this whole conversation is coming at a time when a lot is happening. And like Wabuge puts it, Gachagua must be at crossroads, because on one end he's saying, I will champion for anything that will ensure that the priorities of the people of Mount Kenya are addressed, their concerns are addressed, their concerns are addressed in terms of empowering them economically. But again, he's now facing a situation whereby he has to keep quiet. So what does he do? Does he keep quiet like Obuge says, or does he say something about it? Because if he keeps quiet, then the people of Meru, Embu will start saying, but the DP kept quiet when it came to issues affecting us, issues affecting our business, and we've lost business because he did not say anything. He is a representative, the highest representative in the Kenya Kwanza government. Because I did that story a week ago, and the people of Embu and Meru, when Embu specifically, when they were demonstrating, they carried placards that were written, "It is time to show that we are indeed in government." That translating to, the government should not allow this ban to be upheld. And this comes at a time as well when the court sitting in Embu, the High Court, said, rather suspended the ban until the 8th of July, 2024. So what does Gachagua do?
What is good for the goose is equally good for the gander. And on this I'll agree with Kabuga, that the Deputy President, the Deputy President should remain silent on this, especially considering the fight exhibited by his family against illicit brews in Central. If he wants to address this, he already he has people. There is the Minister of Agriculture. He has members of parliament who are also behind him. Let them speak. Sometimes you don't need to speak all the times. You can use your allies to spearhead certain conversations, because I know this will cost him politically, considering that if it goes either way, if it goes against the mountain, they would have seen lack of interest in fighting for them. But I want to take you back. How did RUTO navigate a similar incident with Mau forests? It was very obvious that Mau was endangered and Raila was fighting for Mau. The president had come out very clearly to save Mau, but it called for eviction of the residents. And supporting Raila, it was the right thing to do, but supporting Raila would mean that he would lose touch with the Mau residents, and that would cost him a lot. So what did he do? He took advantage of this position and went to support their people. If Rigathi Gachagua would want, because right now we started by talking about political interests, it will now depend. If he keeps quiet, he would now stand out as a national leader. The presidency, as provided for in the constitution, will be clearly seen. But then that will also affect him politically. So if he wants to be politically relevant, he can also come out very tough on this and support it with all his might, with all his heart, and he would have achieved a political mileage that will also give him an upper hand against all the other members of parliament. Because right now, all those members of parliament that are aligned to the president are quiet. So he has two options. He can choose either. They will all work to his advantage. But the second one will work to his best advantage of coming out, voicing out the interest of the mountain, because that is the unity he wants. You can never champion for a unity if you don't show us that you are fighting for us. You don't de-whip emotions without showing that you are that bull, that you are that lion that can roar on behalf of your people. So on this, he could be looking for a strategy. He could be looking for a strategy on how to come in and weigh up on the same. But nonetheless, the choice is his.
Fair enough. You see, there's the conversation. There's the Mt.Kenya East, and of course, there's the central part of Mt.Kenya, which is always considered as the Mt.Kenya West. But before I ask you, Mr. Obuge, in regards to that and what the Mt.Kenya East has in terms of votes and what it will mean for Rigathi Gachagua even in his quest to unite the central Kenya region in terms of now the Mogoka battle, I want us to listen to what key CSs in government have had to say in regards to the sort of spark between the Deputy President and President William Ruto, because the CS for Interior, who is from Tharaka Nithi, yes, which is part of Mt.Kenya East, Kithure Kindiki also weighed in and is sort of, is supporting the president on this. Let's just listen into what Kindiki had to say, and of course the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, and Musalia Mudavadi, before we wrap up this conversation.
Tuepukane na ukabila. Tuepukane na ukabila. Kwa sababu hatutaki tulete ukabila kwa Kenya, na bali Mheshimiwa Rais ndio anasimamia taifa nzima, Afrika nzima kwa mambo ya amani.
Pia wakati tulisungumuza na wananchi tukitafuta kura, hakuna mahali hatukufika. Rais William Ruto hakuwa na kasumba ya kusema ile kabila ndogo tusiende huko. Hata Loyangalani kwa Elimolo tulifika. Everywhere to bring Kenyans together. And the message we want to give to our country ni kwamba hii Kenya yetu hakuna mtu mkubwa, hakuna mtu mdogo. Sisi zote ni wa Kenya.
Hapo awali nchi yetu ya Kenya imewahi kupata matatizo. Wananchi wakaumizana wenyewe kwa wenyewe kwa sababu ya tofauti ya jamii hii, jamii ile, sehemu hii, sehemu ile. Tungetaka kuhimiza ya kwamba taifa letu ni moja. We are one indivisible united country. under God, with one map, one flag, one national anthem.
Well, that is Kithure Kindiki, and all the three, Kindiki, Wetangula, Mudavadi, they're all supporting President William Ruto in this. They seem to have, taken their stance already. Now, I wanted to ask you, Mr. Abuge, in terms of, the Mount Kenya East issue, because Kindiki comes from that particular region. Remember in 2022, there was the talk about it either being, as President William Ruto was, going to pick his running mate. It was either there was the talk between Rigathi Gachagua or Kithure Kindiki, but eventually it was Rigathi Gachagua, and Kindiki was picked as the CS. But now, here's one thing: Mount Kenya East will end up probably, depending on what Gachagua does. If he keeps quiet, then most likely the residents of Mount Kenya East will feel like Gashagua's left us, and will now look at who will come out and defend us. Kindiki has not come out to say, I support the ban on Bogoka or not. He's also decided to keep quiet. So, if the residents of Mount Kenya East end up saying, we're not going to support Gachagua because he's decided he's not, supporting our business in terms of Miran, Bogoka and all that, it amounts to, of course, the central part of Mount Kenya amounts to 3.9 million. They have around 3.9 million votes, including Nakuru, which has around 49,000 voters. What does he have to do to ensure that, regardless of the Mogoka issue, he still manages to convince the people of Mount Kenya East that, yes, I am Gachagua, the DP, and I'm also fighting for your interests?
Yeah, I think Wakili brought out something that was powerful when it comes to the hard lesson of leadership. Raila Odinga lost the rift because of his stand on Mau. And that is what the current President William Ruto used to wipe up tribal emotions within the rift, the expansive Rift Valley, and tell them, see what this man did for us.
Again, and the issue of ICC.
And the issue of ICC. But the issue of Mau also played a very huge role at that particular time. And Raila Odinga was on record saying, it is okay for me to lose votes, but save Mau. That was a bold statement from a leader. And indeed it costed him. He lost the entire of the Rift Valley. Now, the Deputy President is at crossroads. And we have said that the Deputy President needs to play his cards quite well. The Deputy President has one of his legacies that will be attached on his name is the fight against illicit brew. And that's why him meddling in the Mogoka issue is too dangerous for him. Because it will be a case of, it is okay for the sons and daughters of coast to die in addiction. But for us, the central, at least we have cleaned up our house. So it is a tough balancing act for Gachagua. But I know him being in politics, he can use other strategies, to hold back and say, he can as well feign that, I was pushed out of the negotiating table. That's why I was unable to voice this thing, because the decision had to be made on the table of decisions, which the humiliation I've gone through, the sidelining I've been unable to speak on it. It has been a government policy about the things that I've wanted for the mountain. And that's why I've been telling you people that I see darkness ahead. This is the darkness that we were talking about. He is a politician. He has a better way of speaking onto this thing.
But in as much as he's in as much as he is a politician, you didn't really want to equate his political experience to the likes of William Ruto or Raila Odinga.
I know, and that's why we are saying he is being pushed out of government. That is what he's telling us. That is what he has not told us openly, that I've been pushed out, but his lieutenants have told us. Mutahi Kahiga has come out and told us we are not going to allow our son to be humiliated. Their son is being humiliated because of the policies of the government. So he can easily come out and say this policy were among the policies that I was fighting for, but because I was sidelined, I was unable to speak about it. if Gachagua ever desires to be a national leader at one point in time, this is the time for him to stand up like Raila Odinga and say, this might cost me votes, but I'll stand for the truth. Why? Because the leadership of Mombasa also desires the same results, like the fight that he has had on the mountain. The women of the mountain had cried for a long time of lonely beds and lonely nights. Right now, their women are happy walking out here, pregnant and expecting a growth in their population. The same women in Mombasa and the coastal region are also crying of lonely nights and lonely beds. Why? Because their men are on what? Mugoka. So it is the same issue that are affecting the central region, is also affecting the coastal region. So in this one, regarding Gachagua, he better shuts his mouth on this.
Now, gentlemen, we have a few minutes remaining, and I'll ask you one question each, even as you give us your parting shot, starting with you, Wakili. Now, the Mt.Kenya region has a number of governors. Anne Mumbi Waiguru has come out to support President William Ruto. Mutahi Kahiga has come out to support Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. The rest of the governors have toned down. They're silent. The governor of Tharaka Nithi, Muthoni Njuki, is silent. Kimani Wamatangi of Kiambu is silent. Irungu Kang'ata of Murang'a is silent. They're all silent. Does Rigathi Gachagua now need to go and also try and talk to these governors to support him? Or what does he do? And again, will it be good for him to also try and, push for meeting of that will bring together the leaders of Mt.Kenya region, including those who are supporting President William Ruto, to try and see whether he can also, bring them to his fold? As you give us your parting shot as well.
Politics is progressive. It's just started. And the fact that governors are quiet does not mean that they do not have a stand. They could be speaking in boardrooms, on call, and I know for sure they have a stand. And these stands, they are poised also to change as time go by. Why? Because you look at your interest. The reason as to why most people dumped Uhuru Kenyatta for UDA, it's because of the ground. The ground was very hostile to Uhuru then. So if Rigathi Gachagua will be successful in mobilizing the mountain as their kingship, or as their kingpin, then it will be very obvious. Everyone will be running towards his direction, and he will now be speaking with authority. So you attract authority. How do you attract authority? By branding yourself and posting yourself as a man of authority. So yes, there are people who actually, even he had a hand in this Haki coalition that was formed the other day, Limuru 3 conference. You would have expected that every speaker in that forum would be out there castigating Rigathi Gachagua. But what did they do? They were they were talking to him as a son. They were telling him to unite with Uhuru Kenyatta. They were very slow on him, and the heat was directed elsewhere. It means that there is something that is going on. There's also another thing that Jeremiah Kioni said the other day, that there are 3 things that RUTO does. I don't know the veracity of the same. That those who are willing to support the Limuru 3, who came out to support the Limuru 3 conference, they shrank back. Why did they shrink back? It's because they were threatened. If they dish out that money, KRA will be knocking at your door the following day. So right now, they want to first see how the weather and the environment is, the political environment. Okay. After they are able to gauge that, then you will see the political formations that will come to exist.
Okay, Mr. Obivi.
Yeah, I wish to reiterate that Kenya is in a crisis, in a leadership crisis. I wish also to reiterate that Mt.Kenya and Rigathi Gachagua is in a cul-de-sac. the decision that the mountain and the garden make is going to be a tough one. But then we're also seeing a case whereby soon and very soon the mountain will be divided and Mt.Kenya will again be a swing vote when it comes to election. We have seen Western at some point was quite a united bloc under Wamalwa Kijana. But up to today, Western is yet to recover, to form one political bloc that somebody can count on. And that is the work that William Ruto is working on right now within the Western side. So Mt.Kenya needs to go back and have a Limuru 3, Limuru 4 now, and bring on board all their sons and daughters and ask themselves a hard question: where do we go from here? If they go out of this government and rebel against the RUTO administration and the Kenya Kwanza, we are seeing a lot of responsibilities being given to Musalia Mudavadi. What position is Mudavadi and Ruto? What is Ruto's strategy around Mudavadi? Is he seeing this as a potential person to fit into these shoes? And on the other side, as we talk about this leadership crisis, we need to ask ourselves, as we talk of this tribal arithmetic, where does that leave Kenya and the new generation that is coming up that doesn't know who is my tribe's person? Or how do I vote? I want to vote somebody out of the content and the substance that they have. That's what we are saying. Our nation is a crisis. Kenya Kwanza government needs to put their act in order and deliver on the promises that they promised Kenyans, because Kenyans are suffering, and give us time to focus and reject the finance bill.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Isaac Obuge, for joining us this particular morning. Same applies to you, Mr. Wakili Peter Osaga, for making time to be with us. Of course, time will tell whether this part and the war of words will continue or not. The president is currently in South Korea for the Korea Africa Summit, as well as meeting with the president of Korea in regards to bilateral talks on various issues and partnership between the two countries. Well, that was the morning drift for you here on Lookuptv on this 4th day of June 2024. Remember, today we'll be following up various stories for you, including the National Assembly Committee on Education, which will be meeting with Higher Education PS Beatrice Inyangala in regards to the new funding model. Remember, like they said, is that the HALB is facing a deficit of around 11.4 billion shillings, and the money that they have at the moment can only serve the continuing students. And only 17.2% of those who are joining university in August and September. Where does this leave those students who depend on HELB? And remember, the new funding model has brought a lot of issues in the education sector, because as it stands, students and parents are being forced to take courses that they can afford as opposed to courses that they qualify for. For instance, you can get a student who qualified to do medicine, but the parents cannot afford to pay for the fees for that particular course due to the funding model. Now, where does that leave us as a country in terms of the education sector? We'll be bringing you that, as well as the National Assembly Finance Committee, which continues to engage with various stakeholders in regards to the Finance Bill 2024. Do have yourself a wonderful day, and remember to keep it Lookuptv. You can visit our website www.lookuptv.co.ke just to get an overview of the stories making headlines not only in the country but as well across the borders. Have a beautiful day, and like always, God bless.
We value your feedback and welcome your complaints about our programming and operations. Feel free to get in touch with us through 0700 893 542 or send us an email to info@